Welcome to How to Cook That. I'm Ann Reardon and today we're going to be making a recipe from my 200-year-old cookbook that my mum gave to me. This episode was requested by my lovely patrons. If you'd like to get involved supporting the channel and vote on future episodes, I'll put a link to my Patreon page below. There's a whole section in this book dedicated to fritter recipes, so I thought we might try out 4 of them. And the first one up is white fritters. Take 2 ounces of rice and wash it clean in water. I'm using brown rice because white rice wasn't invented until mid-19th century, so we're too early for white rice. Next it says, and dry it before the fire. So I guess I'd better drain it and spread it out on a cloth and then dry it in front of the fire. It's hot enough here in Australia that I think it would just dry in the sun, but let's go with the recipe. Then beat it very fine in a mortar. The thing that strikes me about these 200-year-old recipes is just how much work everything was. Basically here we're just making some rice flour, which now the recipe would just say add a couple of tablespoons of rice flour and would just go to the cupboard and get it. But then they had to wash the rice, dry the rice and grind it themselves. And rice is so hard to grind, so even though I'm pounding it, not much is happening. Next it says to sift through a lawn sieve. A quick search on the internet for lawn sieve, and on Etsy there's an 1800s round sieve made with leather with holes in the bottom and a wood circle round the outside. Then from my research next they went to plaited horsehair, and it wasn't until the 1900s that they started to use wire. Well, all I've got is a wire sieve, of course. It's pretty fine, so not much is getting through, so I guess I'll just have to keep pounding away at the lumps that are left. 30 minutes later, and the 4th time through the sieve, and I still don't have it all small enough to go through. But I think I'm either really bad at using a mortar and pestle, or their sieve was not as fine as mine. And it will be a little lumpy if I tip this in. The bits that are left are about the size of large sugar grains, so I'm just going to tip them in and see how we go. Look how brown what we ground first was. That's what's right down the bottom compared to what we ground at the end. That shows you all the brown part of the rice that got ground off first. That's the bit with all the B vitamins and the nutrients in it. That's the bit that we don't get when we get white rice to eat. When white rice was first introduced, it caused widespread vitamin B1 deficiency across Asia, with lots of people getting beriberi. So now they tend to fortify the white rice, but you're still not getting all the nutrients you'd get with brown. Put it into a saucepan, just wet it with milk, and when it is thoroughly moistened, add to it another pint of milk. Set the whole over a stove or a very slow fire and take care to keep it always moving. It's summer here in Australia and we have a total fire ban, which means I cannot light a fire, so I'll have to use my stovetop, which is actually quite a relief. Can you imagine having to light a fire to cook this and every little thing that you want to bake? Put in a little ginger and candied lemon peel grated. Keep it over the fire till it has almost come to the thickness of a fine paste. I couldn't get candied lemon peel, so I'm using grated lemon rind and a little bit of sugar instead. This is taking forever to thicken. I mean, it's slightly thickened, but I definitely wouldn't call it a paste. These white fritters are something I would not want to make again unless they taste amazing, because they're sure taking a very, very long time to make. Thanks, by the way, to everyone who tweeted the hashtag #SaveYouTubeBaking to @TeamYouTube. There are lots of other genres of creators like the how-to creators and beauty creators and craft creators who were also getting involved and tweeting the video saying that they were experiencing the same problem with content farms like 5 Minute Crafts gobbling up all the views, so they just can't stay on the platform unless they can somehow get more views. So let me know if @TeamYouTube replied to any of your tweets. I'd love to know if they were listening. If this is a two-way conversation, that would be awesome. 2 hours later and we have a paste. Yay! I don't want to see these white fritters ever again. It's so long. Now it says, when it is quite cold, spread it out with a rolling pin and cut it into little pieces, taking care that they do not stick to each other. This is so sticky. It is going to need a lot of flour to make it not stick to each other. So I'm going to roll it out, and I'm not sure what shape we're supposed to cut them into. It just said cut into little pieces, so I'll do some stars. But then it says flour your hands and roll up your fritters handsomely and fry them. Does that mean roll them into a ball? It's so sticky, it's sticking to my hands. Or does that mean cut circles and roll them into a handsome shape? What does a handsome shape look like? This makes you realize how much we rely on having pictures in cookbooks. I have no idea what they mean by what's written here. Anyway, let's fry all of these and see which one works the best. So we have the stars, some spheres, and the handsomely rolled ones. They don't look that handsome once they're cooked. The balls look the best, but let's cut that open. They feel a bit soft. Yep, look, they're not cooked in the middle. Perhaps they're supposed to be shallow fried. They don't really go crisp when they're shallow fried though, so I'm not quite sure how they were supposed to be done. When done, strewn on them some sugar. Well, I wouldn't spend half a day making those again. Hopefully the next 200-year-old fritter is a lot more impressive and not quite so underwhelming. Custard fritters, they sound good. They've got batter on the outside, custard in the middle. Beat up the yolks of 8 eggs with 1 spoon of flour and half a nutmeg. Add in the flour. Now to grate half a nutmeg. If you've ever wondered what this weird rough side on the grater is for, it's for hard spices like nutmeg so you can grate them. I love the smell of nutmeg, it's so good. Whenever I use this mini grater, people ask me where I got it from, and I've had it for so long that I can't even remember. I'm really sorry. Look at the pattern side of this nutmeg. Isn't that cool? And that gives you your spice. So we can add in that nutmeg, and then it says add a little salt and a glass of brandy and a pint of cream. Sweeten it and bake it in a small dish. It doesn't say how much sugar to add, so I'm going to put in 4 tablespoons and then bake it in a small dish. Well, I think we might bake it in the dish it's in because it fits well in there and it's already pretty deep. It doesn't say to do this, but usually when you bake a custard, you put it in a water bath coming halfway up the sides to stop it from overheating and splitting. While that's baking, let's move on to Fritters Royal. Put a quart of new milk into a saucepan. They did not have refrigerators back then, so new milk is the best way to have it, 1, fresh, and 2, also have the cream mixed through. If you leave fresh milk that's just been milked from a cow or a goat or anything else, the cream settles to the top of it, so you end up with like skim milk at the bottom. When it begins to boil, pour in a pint of sack or wine. Isn't that just going to curdle the milk? Yes, it did. Oh, I hope that was supposed to happen. What does it say next? Then take it off the heat, let it stand for 5 or 6 minutes, skim off the curd and put it into a basin. Can you see how that is curdled? It looks gross to me, but it's obviously what was supposed to happen. So let's scoop out the curds like it says. Then it says beat it up well with 6 eggs and season with nutmeg. They liked their nutmeg in their fritter recipes. You don't see many recipes with nutmeg in it nowadays apart from gingerbread. Then beat it with a whisk and add flour sufficient to give it the usual thickness of batter. Put in some sugar and fry them quick. I don't actually know how big these should be. I'll start with an ice cream scoop size and see how they go. Well, they look nice and golden, but they are not cooked in the centre, so I'll have to try smaller ones. You might notice that I have foil at the bottom of the basket, and that's because otherwise the liquid batter would go through the basket when it sinks to the bottom and stick to it, and then it's not going to come back up to the top. These Fritters Royal have an unusual texture. I guess you'd kind of call it a bit rubbery even. Definitely not my favourite. Next on the list is apple fritters. They sound more like something we'd have today, so let's try them and then we'll do the custard ones at the end. Take some of the largest apples you can get, pare and core them, and cut them into round slices. To pare something is to take the skin off it, so we'd just call that peel and core the apples now. So pare and core them and then cut them into round slices. So we'll just cut that one up. There we go. Take half a pint of ale and 2 eggs and beat in as much flour as will make it rather thicker than a common pudding. It would be great if they'd actually put in quantities of flour for these recipes, because I'm not really familiar with what the consistency of a common pudding was back in the 1800s. So I'm just going to have to guess. Add nutmeg and sugar to your taste. Again with the nutmeg, every fritter has nutmeg so far. Let it stand for 3 or 4 minutes to rise. Dip your slices of apple into the batter, fry them crisp, and serve them up with sugar grated over them. These apple fritters were delicious. They're not too hard to make, so skip on the first 2 and give these 200-year-old apple fritters a go. Now let's see what happens with the custard ones. It says dip them into a batter made of half a pint of cream, a quarter of a pint of milk, 4 eggs, a little flour, and a little grated ginger. After adding 2 cups of flour, you end up with a nice batter consistency like this. Now it says to cut this baked custard into quarters and dip it in the batter and then fry it. But they would be huge chunks if I just did them in quarters, so I'm going to try doing it in 1/8. It's actually quite hard to get it out. And if I show you here the texture of it, it's quite soft. So I'm not sure how it's going to go when I put it in the batter, but we'll give it a try. Cover it up with the batter and then lift it out. That seems to be holding its shape quite well. Now we'll drop it in. Look at that. This one doesn't seem to brown as quickly as the others because there's no sugar in the actual batter, I guess because the custard in the middle will be quite sweet. Let's see what it looks like inside. Hot custard. But it looks to me like that custard has split with the heat of being fried. I think some of our modern custard recipes would stand up better to being fried, but the batter on these custard fritters is actually really lovely. I think I'll use the batter again, maybe on some apple fritters or something else. What do you like to have battered and fried? What would you try this batter on? Let me know in the comments. With thanks to all my patrons, the platinum level patrons are listed here, and a shout out to my diamond level patron, Cryptozoologic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. If you'd like to support the channel, go to patreon.com/H2CT and sign up there. Click here for my other 200-year-old recipes, here for chocolate, and here for clever or never. Make it a great week, and I'll see you on Friday.